Hello everybody, thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Alexis for anybody who doesn't know. Welcome if you're new, or welcome back if you have been here before. I am the author of A Journey into Truth, Unveiling Life's Secrets for Truth Seekers, and you guys are watching the Vibrate to Create YouTube channel. Thank you for tuning in today. On this channel I talk about life, spirituality, I make vlogs, and I also just share my insights about my life's journey. So if you're interested in that kind of content, then click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell to be notified of when I post new videos so you never miss a video. So in my video, this video will change your life. I will link it above. I talked about J.K. Rowling and how she got started when she decided to write the Harry Potter series. It's actually also in my book too. And so today, I think I wanted to dive into that a little bit and to watch a documentary here with you guys, maybe because it'll inspire somebody to start something. So let's watch that today.
J.K. Rowling is one of the most successful authors of all time, earning more money and getting more fame than any other author in history. She has gained a huge amount of influence and has built a fan base for not only her series, but herself as well. She has made a series that is beloved by millions. One day, while she was on a 4-hour train delay, the idea for Harry Potter came into her head. She said it was the most physical rush of excitement that she had ever felt.
I could see Harry very clearly, this scrawny little boy.
She had nothing to write her thoughts down. For 4 hours, she had all of these ideas building up in her head. As soon as she got home, she wrote all of her ideas down, and she decided that she wanted to write a book. After 6 months of writing, she had written the first chapter 155 different ways, but most of them gave away too much. She said that if you put them all together, you would probably get the whole plot. There, she met and married Jorge Adherence, who was a television journalist. The two decided that they wanted a child, and on their first attempt, Rowling had a miscarriage that greatly affected her. Eventually, she successfully gave birth to their daughter, who they named Jessica, who, as I said before, was named after one of Joe's favorite authors. The marriage turned out to be far from perfect. There was some domestic abuse involved, and Adherence today has admitted to slapping her very hard. One day, he pushed her out of the house without Jessica, and Rowling returned the next day with the cop. He was forced to hand Jessica over, and Joe, who had had enough after 2 years of their marriage, left and went to Britain. Joe knew that she had to rebuild both herself and Jessica a new life, but she wasn't quite sure how. She was on the verge of homelessness and was relying entirely on benefits. She skipped meals to ensure that her daughter was fed. 1 month, she couldn't even afford her own rent and had to borrow money from a friend. At this point, she had fallen into a deep depression. It got so bad that she came to a point where she thought something bad would happen to Jessica, the one good thing in her life, just because everything else had gone wrong. She described her depression saying, "It's a numbness, a coldness, and an inability to believe that you will feel happy again, or that you could feel lighthearted again. All the color drained out of life." This turned out to be the main inspiration for the creatures that she created in Harry Potter, called Dementors.
Please describe the attack.
Everything went cold, as though all the happiness had gone from the world.
Chocolate is even one of the few cures to make you feel better after an attack, a common cure for depression. Rowling eventually got into a routine. The only way to make Jessica fall asleep was to keep her moving, so Joe pushed her in a carriage until she fell asleep. And when she did, she went into the nearest cafe and began writing. Her favorite cafe was called Nicholson's, which was owned by her brother-in-law. She wrote huge parts of the book in this cafe. Joe wished to be published and wished more than anything in the world to be a writer. It took her 5 years from when she thought of the idea on the train to when she finished the first book. Joe wanted to be a writer where the author knew every last detail of everything mentioned in the books. She did this for the audience, but partly for herself as well.
So this is the name of everyone in Harry's year. And all these little symbols mean what house they're in, how magical they are, what their parentage is.
She also made drawings of characters and drawings of how things worked, just so she knew what it looked like. She also wrote the final chapter of the final book. This was her way of telling herself that she would get there one day.
It was a way of saying to myself, well, you will get here. You will get to book 7 one day.
The absence of any meaningful relationship with her father and the slow loss of her mother were two of the most important influences in Joe's writing. The chapter with the Mirror of Erised makes this very clear.
Mom?
When she finally finished the first book, she sent her manuscript into many different publishing companies. Rowling believed in the story and thought that she gave it her best shot. Despite this, however, many publishing companies threw it on the rejection pile. Bloomsbury Publishing eventually picked it up after Rowling told them the whole story that the books would tell, and she asked how they felt about sequels. After hearing the story and how all 7 books would go, Bloomsbury was on board for both the first book and the 6 sequels. Jo was ecstatic. Her lifetime ambition of being put on the shelf finally came true. The book slowly started to get more and more popular. When the book finally made it to America, there was a bidding war between the American publishing companies. Scholastic ultimately came out on top, paying over $105,000. This changed everything for Jo. She could now go full-time as a writer, which is all that she ever wanted. After finishing the second book, she decided to dedicate it to her longtime friend, Sean. When Jo released the third book in 1999, she went from successful writer to international superstar. She was the first author to ever have the top 3 spots on New York Times bestseller list. With this fame, however, came many problems as well. Journalists began banging on her front door. Jessica was being scrutinized and hounded by journalists because Jo was her mother. And worst of all, Jo's dad had journalists at his door questioning him on why his daughter hates him. This deeply hurt him and made Jo and her father's relationship even more complicated. Sean even had reporters knocking at his door digging for information on Jo. Christian groups claiming that her books were promoting the religion of witchcraft. Some parents in South Carolina even tried to get the books banned from the classrooms. People even went as far to say that she herself was practicing witchcraft and was getting death threats because of it. She also got hate for making her so-called children's books so dark and full of death. One mother wrote to Jo, saying that a writer of her ability should be able to make the ending of the books less dark and disturbing. The mother then proceeded to say that she would be back in touch if she did not make the sequels more uplifting. Jo snapped and wrote back, telling her not to read the rest of the books because she was writing it how she wanted. Jo felt uncomfortable by being followed by paparazzi. The moment that stands out the most to her was when photographers were taking pictures of her on the beach. When Jo released the 4th book of the series in 2000, it was another hit. Her book signings began to resemble concerts with thousands of people attending. Jo struggled with public appearances and speeches and didn't like this part of the fame. She was especially terrified to do book readings in front of a large crowd.
I am delighted and terrified to be here.
Around this time, Jo met Neil Murray, and the two got married in 2001. Rowling was eventually approached to make her books into films, and many production companies reached out. Jo was very skeptical at first, and was very picky. She eventually agreed to let Warner Brothers create the series. She worked closely with the screenwriter Steve Kloves, and the two worked out a script that worked for both of them. When Jo saw the set for Diagon Alley, she began to cry because it was so perfect. Jo and Neil eventually had 2 kids.
So I love that story. I love that so much because in my book, let me read you the part where it talks about J.K. Rowling. It's in the very beginning where I kind of talk about my journey. So this is in the very first chapter in the opening. I say, this is page 6. Adversity seems to be the precursor to massive periods of growth in one's life. Think of Steve Harvey, who lived in his car for 3 years while he dreamed of making it as a comedian. J.K. Rowling experienced depression and suicidal thoughts at her life's lowest point before becoming the best-selling author of the Harry Potter series. It is this state of hardship that gives rise to the desire for change. Moments of pain can become the catalyst that push people to become better than they were before the chaos. I don't believe that it's necessary to suffer intensely to become more conscious or to grow. However, in my own life, I experienced immense internal suffering just before my life changed. And then I go into my journey and the breakdown that ended up leading me onto my path and my journey of unfolding and learning and becoming a better person at the time. And so I really wanted to, actually this was my editor suggested that I add examples. So J.K. Rowling and Steve Harvey were not actually supposed to be in the book, and I wasn't going to mention them, but as I gave the book over to my editor, she said, I think you should add examples of people who changed their lives or transformed. And so that's kind of why they ended up in there, because they were examples that I knew about. And so I am so inspired by that story, because if you just think about someone sitting there in a cafe shop or in a coffee shop writing a book, and they don't know where it's going to be leading, who's going to be reading this book. They don't know if it's ever going to work out, or if it's going to be published, or what's going to happen. But nonetheless, she still, like, against all odds, she had a child, and she was on, it said she was getting benefits, and she couldn't even feed herself, but she just wanted to help her baby survive. Like, could you imagine if she never decided to take those steps to share that story and to share those beliefs and opinions and just that art? Could you imagine if she never decided to give that to people, and how much she would have taken away from others and what they got from it, and how it impacted their lives if she never decided to take that step and to share her stuff? And it inspires me so much, because I'm in the process of like releasing my book and giving it out to people and sharing my messages through these videos and going out and doing live events and speaking to people. So it just inspires me so much, because I felt that way when I decided I want to be a teacher. And I felt that way when she first got that idea about Harry Potter when I wrote my book, and how the first time I ever saw the book and the first time I ever held it in my hands, I was like, this is going to be my life's work. Like, I am so passionate about sharing this message with others. And just, that's why I always get chills when I hear these kinds of stories, because it just reminds me so much of myself and like my path and my journey, and inspires me to be able to keep going with what I'm doing. I have to change the battery here. Okay, I'm back. So anyways, I was talking about how she was on the train and she had this idea for this book, and she knew just at a soul level, like, this idea is something that I need to put out into the world. So imagine if she never took those steps to be able to make it go out into the world, and imagine how many lives would have missed out on whatever they've gotten from the series, or how many people, like, your ideas and your work that you create into the world has the ability to impact so many lives. And even if it's just one life, okay, there's a story that I'm thinking about that my teacher says. He says, and you probably already heard it, many people have heard it, but I want to say it anyways. But this story is about a starfish. So there's this little boy, and there's like starfish all over the beach. And this little boy, he's picking up starfish and he's throwing it back into the ocean. And then this guy walks up to him and he says, there's so many starfish here. And I'm paraphrasing here. He says, there's so many starfish here, you're never going to like help them all. Like, this is pointless. And almost like, what you're doing, it doesn't matter because you're not making a big difference. And the little boy says, it made a difference to that starfish. And I guess what I'm saying is, putting your work out there and being able to affect a life, it will impact at least one life. And if it impacts one life, and then that person has an idea and they decide to go change the world around them. There's a movie called Pay It Forward, and I'm going to insert a clip here so you can watch it. It's a very beautiful movie as well. And it talks about this little boy who, he gets an assignment, and his teacher says, I want you to come up with something that will change the world, basically. And this little boy, he really takes on this assignment, and he comes up with this idea for Pay It Forward, where you help so many people, and then those people will help so many people, and it will just kind of be this chain reaction where you keep just paying it forward. And well, I'm getting chills just talking about it. And so in the movie, you get to see him do, you know, things to help other people. So he brings a homeless man into the house to take a shower, and you know, it's a really beautiful movie.
This class is social studies. That is you and the world. Yes, there is a world out there, and even if you decide you don't want to meet it, it's still going to hit you right in the face. believe me. So, best you start thinking about the world now and what it means to you. What does the world mean to you?
My stuff, I don't know, I think some people are too scared or something. I think things can be different.
My life is familiar. My life is... it's manageable. It's manageable.
So is that all you want, your goddamn manageable day?
It's what I have.
I mean, the world's not exactly shit. But I guess it's hard for some people who are so used to things the way they are, even if they're bad, to change. And they kind of give up.
I don't want to be one of those people he's talking about.
When they do, everybody kind of lose. It's like your big chance to fix something that's not like your bike. You can fix a person.
Is that what you want for your birthday? Everybody to pay it forward?
I can't ask for that.
Sure you can. Why not?
Wouldn't work.
Why?
I already blew out my candles.
And I think it's such a good depiction of how you can affect other people and the effect that your actions have on other people, and how that just can create this humongous chain reaction. Because at the end of the video, he actually ends up on the news, and he's just, you know, out in front affecting so many other lives. And it's just so beautiful to think about how one person can change so many lives. And we talked about this in the Socrates video too, where the world would be so different if people like that didn't share their messages, share their stories or their philosophies, even in the face of adversity. Like with what she was saying is, even in the face of not liking what maybe every part of this, like her fame and, you know, people kind of stepping over her privacy, not having as much privacy, or not loving to be out in the super public domain, even in the face of those kinds of adversities, she's still following her art, putting her art out there and sharing even parts of her life and parts of the real raw nature of life and death and evil versus good and morals, and just really diving into these topics, even when there's, you know, parents who are like, oh, you're doing witchcraft, that kind of adversity of like, you're a bad person, or you to me, I just think that's so interesting. I understand, because sometimes we're afraid of things that we don't understand and what we don't know about. And at the beginning of my journey, I didn't know anything about psychism or mediumship or anything like that. For me, it was just, I really wanted to understand what happens on the other side of life. And I wasn't afraid to dive into something brand new or something different than what I had learned when I was growing. So, but some people, it's like brand new information, and some people, it's really scary to them to open their mind to something brand new. But I would like to say it has changed my life to keep an open mind. So I guess the biggest thing here is believing in your dreams and your ideas, if you're an entrepreneur especially, because even like my public speaking teacher, he's so passionate about sharing what he knows, and he's so knowledgeable and has so many good talents, and he's so talented at what he does of teaching people how to speak in public. And he created his whole business all on his own. And when you walk into the training room, and you guys have actually seen it in my vlogs, it's incredible what one man can do because of his passion for doing something. He's got this whole like collection of hundreds of world leaders. He calls them the world leader portraits. And he paid somebody to actually make these pieces of art. So he owns them, but he had somebody else make all of them. And it's incredible because that's just one tiny little piece, and it's this humongous collection of huge photos or art. And then he has the stage, and he has the microphones and the sound systems and the lighting and the music and the smoke machines, and he's got everything all prepared, and the schedules and the planning. And just when you really look at it, it's like, oh, that is so beautiful what you're doing, because you put so much heart and soul and love and so much forethought into it, and you put your whole life into something. And now I get to be witness to something so beautiful. I'm gonna get so teary-eyed here. And then just following that passion. And then you watch someone like J.K. Rowling, and she started in one tiny little spot, sitting there in a cafe writing a book. And then it led to something so much bigger, and then it led to Warner Brothers wanting to come and do like movies of your book and recreate your book. And imagine what that feels like to think, at one time I was just sitting in a train, and now I'm seeing my whole idea of what I thought this story would be right in front of me, and it's able to share with so many other people, and so many other people are going to get to watch that one idea I had. Your ideas are powerful. Your words are powerful. And it just shows you that when you believe in yourself and when you trust in your ideas, that you can change your life, and you can change somebody else's life as well. So I'm going to leave you there with that today. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you got something from it. And if you have any questions or comments, you can leave those down in the comments below for me. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you guys next time. Bye guys.